I should never have stepped onto that ground. That's the truth of it. I could dress it up in excuses, curiosity, pride, the thrill of a dare. But none of that matters anymore. What matters is that the earth itself remembers me now. It breathes under my feet, and I think it wants you too. You see, people always imagine graveyards as peaceful. Quiet rows of stone, soft grass, maybe a breeze whistling through the trees. That's the picture we're sold, places of rest. But rest doesn't happen there.
Not really.
The ground doesn't lie still. It hums, it whispers, it shifts when you're not looking. I learned that the night I set foot on what they call hallowed ground. I can hear you scoffing already. Another ghost story, another urban legend. Believe me, I wanted to scoff too. I thought it would be fun. Creepy ambiance, maybe some goosebumps, a story to tell later with a laugh. But the thing about cursed places is this. They don't care if you believe in them. They care if you trespass, and I trespassed. It was raining when I went in, though rain feels like the wrong word. It was heavier than that. A storm pressing down on the world. Every drop stinging like a warning I didn't understand. My lantern flickered with every gust. The graveyard gate groaned open like it was sighing at me, begging me to turn back. I didn't listen. Inside, it looked almost ordinary at first. Crooked stones, some cracked, some leaning. Names half-eaten by moss. Angels with their faces melted by time. I remember laughing to myself. Dark humor, the only shield I had. Hallowed ground, I muttered. More like forgotten ground. But that laugh felt thin in my throat, like the storm swallowed it before it ever left me. That's when I felt it. The first whisper, not words exactly, more like vibration, like the hum of a buried power line, but deeper, older. It seemed to come from beneath the soil, curling up through my boots, threading itself into my bones. I froze, lantern light trembling in my hand, and I thought, it's just the wind. It's just the storm. But then it came again, softer, closer. Almost like my name I should have left. God, I should have turned around right then. But fear has a strange way of pulling you deeper. You tell yourself you'll just take one more step, just a peek further, and then you'll go. And before you realize it, you're in too far to turn back. So I kept walking. Every stone I passed seemed to lean toward me, as if listening. The grass bent, though there was no breeze, and the whispers followed, weaving into a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. That's when the thought struck me, maybe this wasn't a graveyard at all. Maybe hallowed didn't mean sacred. Maybe it meant something else, claimed. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's the only way to make the weight of those whispers lighter. Or maybe I've already passed the curse on, and I just need you to know why. Either way, if you've made it this far, you're part of it now. Because hallowed ground doesn't stay in the earth. It follows. It listens through stories, through memory, through the simple act of hearing its name. And tonight, I'll tell you what happened there. But remember this, the moment you picture the stones, the rain, the soil shifting underfoot, you've already stepped inside. Maybe you'd call it arrogance. Maybe I just wanted to prove I wasn't like everyone else in town, whispering about the graveyard like it was a dragon's den. Every small place has its forbidden patch of earth, its local legend. Ours was the cemetery at the edge of the county line. A plot so old even the church stopped claiming it. People called it hallowed ground with a bitter twist, like the name was a curse instead of a blessing. The warnings came easy enough. Don't go there after dark. Don't linger too close to the fence. Don't answer if the ground calls to you. You know how small towns are. Half superstition, half threat. I'd grown up hearing the rules my whole life, and the more I heard them, the more I wanted to spit in their face. That night I told myself it was for research, maybe even inspiration. If I can walk the hallowed ground and come back, I thought, I'll have a story no one else can tell. It sounds stupid when I say it out loud now, but pride makes us deaf. The walk there was uneventful. Dirt road, sagging fences, the smell of rain hanging in the air. I passed the same crooked oak tree I'd seen 100 times. I remember thinking it felt too ordinary for what people claimed waited ahead. That's contrast for you. One moment normal, the next nightmare. When I reached the gates, they looked smaller than I'd imagined. Rusted iron bent in places, chains wrapped haphazardly across them as if someone had tried to lock the dead in. My lantern painted them gold in the dark, and I remember running my fingers over the links, cold, damp, real. I almost turned back. Almost. But then I heard a voice. "You don't belong here." Not from the graveyard. From behind me. An old man bent over, carrying a bundle of tools on his back. His face was a roadmap of lines and scars. His eyes sunk deep as though he hadn't slept in years. "The groundskeeper, or what was left of one. You planning to step inside?" he asked, voice gravel scraping over gravel. I smirked, bravado hiding nerves. "It's just a cemetery." He shook his head slowly. "Not just. Never just. That place eats the proud." He leaned closer. "You know the rules." I repeated them like a nursery rhyme, half mocking. "Don't stand on a fresh grave, don't answer if it calls my name. Don't stay past midnight." His face hardened. "Don't laugh at rules you don't understand." Before I could reply, the storm cracked overhead, thunder rolling so loud it drowned his next words. And in that silence afterward, I swear the ground behind the gates shifted. Just a tremor, like someone turning over in their sleep. The old man spat into the dirt, muttered a prayer and limped away, never once looking back. And me? I pressed the gate. It groaned open under my hand, louder than the thunder, as if the whole place was sighing in relief that I'd finally stepped forward. I should have listened. I should have left with him. But instead I took my first step onto hallowed ground, and the earth whispered welcome. Not on my shoulders, not in my chest, beneath my feet. The ground felt thicker somehow, like each step pressed into more than dirt. The lantern light swayed with my movement, throwing gold across crooked stones. Rain tapped against the glass, steady as a metronome. And under it all, something else stirred. At first, I thought it was the storm. A low hum, a vibration running through the soles of my boots. But the longer I stood still, the clearer it became. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't wind. It was voices, muffled, distant, as though I was standing above a crowded room buried deep underground. I crouched low, pressed my palm flat against the wet earth, and the sound sharpened. Words, not many, not clear, but syllables I almost recognized. My name woven into the static. I snatched my hand back like I'd touched a stove. "It's just water in the soil," I muttered, voice thin in the rain. Just the storm shaking the ground. Rational lies, fragile as glass, I tried to ignore it. I kept walking, counting headstones like steps on a ladder, anything to keep my mind busy. 33, 34, 35. The whispers rose again, louder this time. Not under my feet, but behind me. I spun around, lantern swinging. Nothing but graves, stones leaning at angles like crooked teeth, their names worn smooth by time. But the soil at the base of one marker looked pressed, flattened, I stepped closer, heart pounding, and froze. There, clear as day in the rain-darkened dirt, was a handprint, not carved, not old, fresh. Fingers splayed wide, sinking half an inch into the ground as though something underneath had pushed against it. I staggered back, boots skidding against wet grass. The lantern shook so hard the flame nearly died. For a moment I thought I saw the soil shift again, bulging upward like something trapped below wanted out. Wind, I told myself. Just the wind. But my voice cracked and the storm swallowed the lie. The whispers rose sharper, closer, curling around my ears like breath. They didn't sound like strangers anymore. They sounded like me. My voice layered a dozen times, murmuring things I couldn't quite catch, except for one word. Stay. The rain fell harder, drumming on stone, drowning the sound, but not enough. My reflection flickered in the wet marble of a headstone, face pale, eyes wide, lantern glow flickering like a halo. And for the briefest second, I swear the reflection's mouth moved on its own, whispering. That was when I realized this wasn't wind or soil or storm. This ground wasn't resting, it was listening. And worse, it was speaking back. I stumbled away, my boot landing on something soft. Grass, no, my stomach dropped. Fresh soil, damp, uneven. A mound too new to blend with the others. The whispers went silent. The sudden quiet roared louder than thunder. And then, faint from directly below my feet, came the sound of fingernails scratching wood. The scratching chased me backward until my spine smacked against cold stone. I stood frozen, lantern trembling, listening to that faint, awful sound. Nails dragging inside a coffin. Then as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The silence pressed harder than the storm. That's when I heard boots behind me. I spun, half expecting another grave to split open. Instead, the lantern glow caught the outline of the cemetery keeper, the same old man I'd seen at the gates. He leaned against a shovel, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. For a moment, I wondered if he'd been following me all along. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped. His voice was thick, cracked, the kind that carried too much history. "I'm fine," I lied. My chest heaved and I knew he could hear it. Just taking a look around." His eyes narrowed, reflecting the lantern light like dull glass. "That's what they all say. Just a look, just a step, just a name whispered back. And then they never leave." I swallowed. "What do you mean, never leave?" He took a step closer. Water squelched beneath his boots, but his gaze never left mine. "This ground is bound, not holy, not sacred, bound. You break the rules, it knows you. It clings to you, and once it has your name." He tapped the side of his skull with a wet, dirt-streaked finger. "It doesn't let go." I tried to laugh, but it sounded brittle. "You really expect me to believe this is more than old bones and ghost stories?" He didn't laugh. He didn't blink. He just said, "Tell me, did it speak yet?" The words stuck in my throat. I hadn't told him about the whispers. I hadn't told him about the handprint, or the scratching wood beneath my boots. But he knew. I must have gone pale because his expression hardened. "Then it's already listening. You've got one chance left, and only if you keep the rules." "What rules?" I asked, though I already knew the rhyme. His eyes darkened. "Never stand on fresh soil. Never answer if the earth calls your name. And never, ever stay when the bells strike midnight." The lantern hissed as rain slipped inside the glass, and I shivered. "And if I break them?" The keeper's face twitched, like he wanted to say more but couldn't. Finally, he muttered, "Then you'll learn what the ground keeps hungry for." He turned then, slow, deliberate, and started back toward the shadows between the stones. The shovel clinked against his shoulder with each step, a steady rhythm swallowed by the storm. "Wait!" I called after him. "Why are you telling me this?" He stopped, shoulders hunched, head bowed. For a long moment, the only sound was the storm. Then he said without looking back, "Because once someone told me, and I didn't listen either." The lantern light wavered, and before I could blink, he was gone, like the rain had washed him out of the world. I stood alone, drenched, the soil whispering again beneath my boots, and I realized something terrible. I couldn't tell if the whispers were speaking my name or the keepers. I wish I could tell you I followed the rules, that I stepped lightly, watched where I walked, held the keeper's words like scripture. But the truth? I was careless, it happened so fast. I was backing away from one of the leaning stones, trying to steady my breathing, when my heels sank into something softer than grass. My foot slid down into damp soil, loose, uneven, freshly turned. I froze. Every nerve in my body screamed at once. The storm hushed around me. The whispers cut short, and for one impossible second, the entire graveyard seemed to hold its breath. Then the scratching began. At first, faint, a slow drag of nails on wood, then frantic, violent, scrapes and thuds as though fists pounded from beneath the ground. My stomach lurched, stumbled forward, nearly dropping the lantern, my boot pulling free with a wet suction. The mound shuddered. Rain slid down its slope in rivulets, and I saw the outline beneath the soil. Long, narrow, unmistakable. A coffin. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." The scratching grew louder, sharper. Splinters cracking. The lantern flame hissed and spat, shadows twitching against crooked headstones. I staggered backward, mud clinging to my boots. My eyes locked on the soil as it swelled upward. Then silence. My breath fogged in the cold. The grave lay still. I almost let myself believe it was over until I saw it. A handprint pressed from below. 5 fingers stretching against the soil, straining upward. The mound rose, sank, rose again, as if whoever or whatever was buried there was clawing for daylight. I don't remember making the sound that tore out of my throat, but it echoed against the stones, raw and panicked. I stumbled into another marker, nearly toppling it, the lantern lurching wildly in my grip. Rule 1. The keeper's voice rang in my head. Never stand on a fresh grave. I had broken it. The earth shivered beneath me, not just at that mound, but everywhere. Ripples passing like waves through the cemetery floor. More whispers rose with it. Overlapping voices, layered and desperate. Some begged, some mocked, some simply repeated my name, again and again, until it felt like the ground itself was chanting. The mound shifted once more, a crack splitting the soil. I swear I saw fingers, pale, wet, reach through before the storm thundered so loud it shook me out of paralysis. I ran. Not out of courage, not out of sense, pure animal panic. My boots slid in the mud, the lantern flame smearing light across stone and rain. I didn't dare look back, but I felt it. The weight of that hand beneath the ground, pressing upward, reaching, promising it would find me again. When I finally stopped, chest heaving, I was deep among the graves. No path, no gate in sight. Just rows and rows of stones, each one leaning closer, each one whispering louder. And I realized I hadn't just stepped on a fresh grave. I tried to tell myself I'd imagined it, that the soil hadn't moved, that the handprint was just rain pooling strangely. But denial is fragile. and it shattered the moment the bells began to toll. The sound came from nowhere and everywhere all at once. A church long abandoned, miles from the graveyard. Yet the bells carried through the storm as if they were hung directly above my head. Bong. The first strike rattled through the stones. I felt it in my ribs, deep and resonant. Bong, the second, shook the lantern in my hand. The flame bent sideways, nearly snuffed out. By the third, I realized what was wrong. The keeper's warning. Never stay past midnight, and yet, there I was, boots sinking into cursed soil. The air itself thickening as though the night wanted me swallowed whole. The fourth and fifth tolls layered over the whispers beneath the ground. They weren't whispers anymore. They were groans, moans, sighs that rose from below in harmony with the bells. Each strike pulled something higher, closer. The sixth toll dropped the temperature in an instant. My breath fogged in the air, white against the storm. The rain slowed, not in reality but in perception. Each drop stretching longer, falling heavier, as though time itself was dragging. By the seventh, the lantern died. No hiss, no sputter, just black. I stood blind among the stones, listening to the eighth toll rumble through my bones. My heart thrashed, desperate to keep up. Somewhere nearby, soil shifted. A dull thump followed, like fists knocking from below. Bong, 9. The whispers turned to words now. Words I could almost understand. Please. Cries. Mocking laughter. And threaded between them my own name. Over and over, a chorus calling me deeper into the dark. Bong, 10. A headstone cracked in half nearby, stone splitting like brittle bone. I couldn't see it, but I heard it. The sharp snap, the crumble of earth as the grave beneath stirred. Bong, 11. My knees buckled, not from fear this time, but from something heavier pressing down on me, forcing me lower, closer to the ground. The soil pulsed under my palms as I braced myself, and I swore I felt fingers push back against my skin. Bong. 12. The cemetery exhaled. The graves shifted, one after another, like sleepers turning in bed. The air reeked of rotten, wet stone. And then, impossibly, Bong 13. The final toll should never have come. Clocks don't strike 13. Bells don't reach that high. But the sound crashed through me like the sky itself had split open. And with it came silence. No storm, no whispers, nothing. Then the first hand broke through. Soil crumbling, pale fingers clawing into the open air. Another followed, and another. Across the cemetery, graves split like wounds, the dead unearthing themselves in quiet unison. I staggered backward, throat locked tight, eyes wide as shadowy figures began pulling free from their coffins. Not rotting corpses, but pale shapes that shimmered in the lightning. Mouths opening to release the whispers I'd heard all night. And then, in the hush after the 13th toll, one of them raised its head. It smiled. I'd always thought the dead would rise screaming, clawing, howling like nightmares made flesh. But when they pulled themselves from the soil, there was no chaos, no frenzy. Only silence. Heavy, deliberate, unbearable silence. Figures dragged free from the earth in jerking motions, like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. Their faces were pale, smoothed of detail except for the mouths. The mouths moved constantly, whispering streams of words too quiet to catch, too layered to untangle. I stood rooted, my breath ragged in the dark, and the awful realization struck me. These weren't corpses. Not exactly. They looked more like impressions, shadows of people, outlines filled in by memory and rot. They shimmered when lightning split the sky. Translucent one moment, solid the next. They didn't lurch toward me. They didn't even look at me. They wandered between the stones, drifting aimlessly, pausing now and then to press a hand against the markers, whispering into the cracks like trying to wake old friends. Some bent over fresh soil listening, some knelt, clawing gently at the ground as though urging others to rise. I hoped they hadn't noticed me, until one did. It turned slow, deliberate, head tilting as though the sound of my breathing pulled it from its trance. The lightning struck again, and in that flash I saw its eyes. Not hollow sockets, not glowing orbs. Eyes that looked human, familiar. Its lips moved, whispers spilling out in a dozen voices at once. And then I heard it. My name not once, repeated, chanted, layered in male and female tones, young and old, all spilling from one mouth. My name. My name. My name. The others froze. Every pale head turned, every mouth stilled, and in unison they whispered it too. My name, rising into the storm, curling around me like chains. I staggered back, tripping over a stone, mud soaking my palms as I fell. My lantern lay cracked beside me, flame long dead, glass glittering in the lightning. I scrambled to my feet, but the ground beneath me shifted. A hand, cold, damp, too strong, gripped my ankle. I kicked, screaming, tearing free, leaving behind a smear of mud that felt too much like blood. The figures drifted closer now, not rushing, not frantic, just inevitable. Their whispers layered until it sounded like a hive of bees, thick and droning, every note shaping my name. One of them reached out, fingers long and pale, nails black with soil. It brushed my sleeve and a chill sliced through me. Not on my skin, but in my memory. For a second I saw flashes. Faces I didn't know, lives I hadn't lived, deaths I couldn't comprehend. They poured into me like smoke through a broken window, gone as soon as I gasped for breath. That's when I realized what they were. Not bodies, not ghosts, memories. Memories that the earth had swallowed whole, clawing their way out to find new vessels. And they'd chosen me. I turned and ran, mud sucking at my boots, lightning carving the world into violent snapshots. Behind me the whispers swelled louder, sharper, closer. And in the brief silence between thunderclaps, I heard it again, clearer this time, one voice, just one, cutting through the swarm. Stay. I had run until my lungs burned, until the whispers blurred into the storm, until every crooked headstone looked the same. I stumbled against one, chest heaving, mud caked to my hands. And when I looked up, there he was, the keeper standing in the rain like he'd been waiting all along. His lantern burned steady, untouched by the storm. His shovel rested against his shoulder, and his eyes fixed on me with something between pity and contempt. You broke the first rule, he said flatly. I wanted to argue, to scream, to demand he tell me what the hell was happening, but the words snagged in my throat, drowned by the memory of fingernails clawing at wood beneath my boots. They know you now, he continued. The ground has your name. Why? I croaked. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. Why is this place wrong? The keeper's gaze flicked to the stones around us. They leaned toward him as if listening, their cracked surfaces gleaming wet in the lantern glow. Because it isn't hallowed, he said. Not holy, not blessed. Bound, I frowned through the rain. Bound? His jaw clenched. Every soul laid here carried something unfinished. Rage, hunger, secrets that couldn't rot away. The church thought burying them together would keep the curse contained. But the ground doesn't heal, it festers. Lightning split the sky, illuminating rows upon rows of graves, each one looking suddenly less like a place of rest and more like a prison cell. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. Ghost stories don't make sense. The keeper's lips twitched, almost a smile, but not kind. Doesn't matter if it makes sense. You've heard them, haven't you? The whispers. That's not imagination. That's the debt they're trying to pay. Every voice you hear is a memory clawing for release. My stomach lurched. And if I give it to them? He stepped closer, lantern glow spilling across his scarred face. Then they take yours in return. The storm groaned around us, thunder rolling like a warning. The whispers had quieted, but not gone. They pressed at the edges of my hearing, eager, waiting. I swallowed hard. You make it sound like I don't have a choice. You don't, he said simply. His grip tightened on the shovel. His voice dropped low, gravel grinding over gravel. Once you break the rules, the ground keeps you, forever. My chest tightened, fear clamping down like a vice. Then how are you still here? For the first time, his eyes flickered. Something raw, something guilty. He turned his face away, the lantern glow catching the scar across his cheek. I broke the rules too, he whispered. And this place never let me leave. The words sank like stones in my gut. My mouth opened, but before I could speak, the keeper raised a hand. His lantern dimmed, his eyes fixed on the dark path behind me. They're coming. The whispers surged again, louder now, closer, rising with the storm. And I understood. Whatever had been stirring under the soil wasn't satisfied with whispers anymore. Not a tremor. Not thunder. A ripple, like the cemetery itself exhaled. The nearest grave cracked, soil sliding down its sides and pale fingers curled over the edge. Another followed. Then another. The whispers I'd tried to ignore sharpened into a chorus rising like a tide. Run, the keeper said. I didn't need telling twice. I bolted. Boots skidding through mud, lantern jerking wild beams across crooked stones. The storm clawed at me from above, the earth from below, and all the while I heard them, dozens of voices, hundreds maybe, all whispering my name. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel them, cold air pressing at my shoulders, footsteps dragging behind me, too many to count. The cemetery stretched impossibly long, the rows of graves twisting into paths I didn't remember. Every turn led me deeper, every corner revealing more stones. I tried to retrace my steps, oak tree, cracked angel, leaning cross, but nothing was where it should be. It was as if the place had reshaped itself to keep me inside. The whispers grew louder. Some begged, some mocked, some laughed in voices that sounded uncomfortably like mine. One voice hissed just behind my ear, "Stay." I stumbled, nearly pitching forward into an open grave yawning at my feet. The soil was fresh, the wood of the coffin lid visible beneath the rain. My stomach flipped as I read the headstone. My name, not weathered, not carved years ago. Fresh. The letters sharp, the date blank, waiting. I reeled backward, bile burning my throat. The whispers shrieked in unison, and for the first time, I saw them closing in. Pale figures sliding between stones, their mouths open in constant, hungry murmurs. I ran again, lungs tearing, panic turning my vision white around the edges. Graves burst open on either side of me, soil spraying as more figures pulled themselves free. They didn't lunge. They didn't rush. They simply moved, inevitable as the tide, hemming me in on all sides. The keeper's warning echoed in my skull. Never answer if the earth calls your name. But it was hard not to answer when every voice in the dark was mine. I cut between rows, mud sucking at my boots, breath burning in my chest. My lantern flickered, died, then sparked again, casting strobing light across the stones. In one blink, the path was empty. In the next, a figure stood inches from me. Face pale, eyes dark, lips whispering my name over and over until it no longer sounded like a word. I shoved past it screaming, feeling its fingers brush my sleeve. The chill cut deeper than the storm. Lightning split the sky, illuminating a gate in the distance. Rusted iron, twisted shut, but a way out nonetheless. Hope surged. I sprinted, heart clawing at my ribs. The whispers rose to a frenzy, louder, closer, pressing into my skull until I thought my ears would bleed. The ground heaved beneath me, stones cracking, graves yawning open like mouths. And then I saw it. Just beside the gate, half hidden in the shadows, stood another headstone. My name again, only this time the date wasn't blank. It was tonight. I froze at the sight of it. My own headstone gleaming wet in the stormlight, my death already carved into the stone. The iron gate was only feet away, salvation almost within reach. But that marker rooted me in place. And then the voices closed in. They poured around me, a ring of pale shapes rising from the soil, their whispers overlapping until it felt like standing in a swarm. I couldn't tell one from another. Old, young, male, female. Every voice carried my name like a curse. I dropped to my knees, hands clamped over my ears. "What do you want from me?" I screamed. The whispers faltered as though my words struck them silent. Then one voice, clearer than the rest, slipped through the storm. A woman's voice cracked with grief. "Remember me," another followed. A man's low and ragged. "Speak my name." Dozens joined, layering together in desperation. "Say us, carry us. Don't leave us here." It clicked then. They didn't want my blood, my flesh. They wanted to be remembered. Bound in this hallowed ground, they starved for recognition. And the moment I spoke their names, they could ride my memory out of the cemetery, live again in whispers and thoughts. The first figure reached me, its hand cold and trembling as it, without thinking, the figure shuddered, light sparking through its body like fire beneath skin. Then it faded into mist, gone. The others surged closer, pressing their names into my ears, my head, my chest. I shouted them back, 1, 2, 10, 20, each word tearing something from me. With every name I spoke, my voice weakened. My body sagged heavier. Felt like giving away pieces of myself, one shard at a time. The whispers grew ecstatic. The storm roared with their hunger. My throat ached raw, my chest hollowing with every syllable. Still, I kept speaking, because each name bought me another second alive. But there were too many. Too many voices, too many demands. The circle tightened, their pale hands reaching, grabbing, tugging. "I can't," cried. "There's too many." The whispers hissed at once, angry now. Cold fingers clawed at my arms, my hair, my clothes. Their mouths pressed close to my ears, shouting names faster than I could breathe. One figure leaned close, its eyes hollow pits, its breath cold as ice. "If you cannot carry us all," it whispered, "then you will carry none." My mind reeled. If I failed them, they'd take me, add me to the ground. One more whisper begging for release. I forced myself to my feet, staggering under the weight of voices, and shouted into the storm. "I'll take what I can. I'll carry you." For a moment they stilled, dozens of faces watching, pale and flickering. Then slowly some pulled back, dissolving into the dark. Others remained, silent, their whispers curling low and furious. They weren't satisfied, not all of them. The ground swelled beneath me, splitting at the edges of my vision. I stumbled toward the gate, voices still echoing in my skull, some clinging to me, some spitting curses I couldn't understand. When I reached the iron, I clawed at it with bleeding hands, dragging myself through as the storm screamed. And when I stumbled into the night beyond, I thought I was free until I heard it. The whispers didn't fade. They followed. I staggered beyond the gate, lungs burning, mud heavy on my boots. The storm lashed harder, but I didn't care. I was out. I was alive. The whispers still pressed at the edges of my skull. But distance would kill them, I told myself. Distance would save me. I turned back only once, expecting to see pale figures clawing at the bars. But the cemetery stood still, quiet. No movement among the stones. For a heartbeat, I believed I had escaped. Then I looked ahead. The dirt path stretched into the dark, same as it always had. The oak tree loomed on the horizon, crooked branches stabbing the storm. Relief flickered. I knew this road. It would lead me home. I walked faster, faster still. My legs ached, my throat raw from shouting names, but I forced myself forward. Every step should have carried me further. Every breath should have pulled me closer to safety. But the oak never moved. No matter how far I walked, it stayed the same distance ahead, crooked and waiting. I stopped, gasping, clutching at my knees. Behind me, the cemetery gates groaned in the wind. When I turned back, my heart froze. The graves were there, right behind me. The same stones, the same broken angel, the same fresh mound with my name carved sharp into its marker. No, I whispered. My voice cracked like the thunder above. No, I got out. I ran. Blind panic. I tore down the path again, past the oak, past the sagging fence, faster than I'd ever moved in my life. The wind clawed at me, the storm roared in my ears. But still the oak stayed fixed ahead. And still, when I looked back, the graves followed. The world wasn't a road anymore. It was a loop. The whispers slithered back into my head, triumphant, hungry. Some begged, some laughed. One hissed, "Home is here." I dropped to my knees, clutching my skull, rain soaking my clothes. My breath hitched on the edge of sobs. There was no out, no escape. The ground had me like the keeper said, and I finally understood what he meant when he told me he could never leave. This wasn't just a graveyard. It was a cage, a trap that reset itself, folding reality until you couldn't tell if you'd ever stepped outside at all. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the rows of stones around me. Every one of them seemed closer, crowding in, their carved names bleeding water like fresh ink. And among them I saw it again, my stone, my name. Tonight's date carved deep, as if mocking me. I screamed, a sound that didn't even feel like my own voice anymore, and hurled the broken lantern at the marker. Glass shattered, metal clanged against stone. The grave didn't crack. The name didn't vanish. The whispers laughed. 100 voices. 1,000. And then, in the midst of their chorus, I heard something else. Not them, not the storm. A voice soft and human, almost kind. "Tell it," it said. I froze. The voice wasn't outside. It was inside my head, and I understood horribly what it meant. I couldn't escape. Not on my own. The only way out was through you, through whoever listened next. And as the storm pressed closer, the ground shifting under me, I realized I had no choice but to speak. I warned you at the start, this wasn't just a list. You thought it was about movies, about trivia, about ways to pass the time on a dark and stormy night. But if you've stayed this long, you already feel it, don't you? That hollow tug in your chest, that silence between thunderclaps, that sense you're not alone. These names I've spoken, these stories I've told, they weren't just for you. They were for them. Each word, each memory, each whisper was a key slipped into a lock. And with every turn, something has been moving closer. You probably told yourself it was harmless. Just another creepypasta. Just another narrator reading in the dark. But stories like this don't fade when the screen goes black. They cling, they echo. They wait, I didn't do this to scare you. I did it because I had to. Because the cemetery doesn't end at its gate. Because the whispers don't stop at its fence. Because each time I tell it, each time someone new listens, the weight shifts. A piece of it leaves me and finds you, and now it's found you. If that feels unfair, I understand. I felt the same way the first time I heard it. But curiosity is a door you opened yourself. You leaned in. You wanted to know more, and now the ground knows you, so listen carefully. When you close this video, when the storm outside your window dies down, don't ignore the first sound you hear. It might be nothing. A branch, a creak, a neighbor. But if it's a knock, soft, deliberate, repeated, don't answer it. Because if you do, you'll learn what I learned. That some guests never leave. Some whispers never fade. Some movies never end. That storm outside, it isn't just weather. It's cover. The louder it rages, the closer they are. And when the silence comes, when the thunder fades and the night feels still, that's when you'll know they've arrived. So tell me, was it worth it? Was the list worth the price? Leave your answer below. Comment your theories. Share the names of the films you think you've seen. The ones you swear are real. I'll be reading. I always am until then. Keep the lights low, keep the curtains drawn, and whatever you do, don't look behind you.